Medical innovation starts with medical discussion. Talking about the future and what comes next with Project Medtech.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lindsay Deneen, Director of Marketing and Engagement at Project Medtech, and welcome to another episode of the Project Medtech podcast. If we can help you in any way, or you would like to suggest a future guest, you can email us at info@projectmedtech.com. If conversations like this are helpful, that's exactly why we bring people together at our signature events, the Midwest Showcase, the Startup Symposium, and Coming to America. For more on our events that include networking, education, and pitch competitions for startups, check them out at www.projectmedtech.com. We even have sponsorship options if your company is also dedicated to accelerating medical technology to impact patient lives. So reach out today to get involved. The Project Medtech podcast is proudly sponsored by Ward Law. Ward Law Office, LLC is a boutique law firm specializing in the practice of patent and trademark law. They are committed to providing inventors, entrepreneurs, and businesses of all types with personal and professional services and are flexible to meet your unique needs. It is their goal to both educate on how to secure valuable patent and trademark protection and to provide high-quality services at rates affordable to independent inventors, startups, and small businesses alike.
Today's episode of Project Medtech is brought to you by Wheelhouse DMG, performance marketing for privacy-first industries like medtech and healthcare. Every Wheelhouse client experienced record growth in 2025. That's the result of more than a decade building the data infrastructure, measurement systems, and domain expertise that healthcare and medical device marketing actually requires. Find out how every Wheelhouse client experienced record growth in 2025 at wheelhousedmg.com.
Without further ado, let's dive in.
All right, Franco, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dwayne.
Absolutely. So let's start here first. This is a first for Project Medtech podcast where someone is calling in the background looks fake, but it's real. And this is perfect timing too, because if this was before episode 250, we wouldn't have done it with any kind of video, but this one has video. So talk to me first about where you are, and then give me an intro to who is Franco and what do you do?
Yeah, so we're off the coast of Naples, basically in this little town called Poseidon. Capri is just about, a few miles that way. And yeah, I'm in the yacht of one of my investors.
That's awesome. So talk to me, Franco, about your background, kind of leading up to what you're doing with Asclepii.
Yeah, so let's talk about who is Franco and how we got to this point. So I'm originally from Argentina. I'm a Cleveland-based founder now, so I emigrated from Argentina to Cleveland to start a company because I thought that Cleveland was the best place in the world to do so. So I grew up around 5 different countries, 7 different cities. So, Spain, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, and now the US. And basically when I got a job at 14 washing beakers in a lab that did cell therapy, where they would, inject stem cells into the eyes of people who had, lost visions due to conditions like neuropathy and, derived from diabetes. And then, we would also focus on chronic wound healing as well, right? In rats, and we had experimental treatments in humans. And for me, that was the closest thing to a superpower I had ever seen in real life, right? I genuinely believe that these PhDs I was working with, were superheroes. So that's what I wanted to do with my life. So you start washing beakers. They ask you to mix the solution up. Next thing you know, you're doing an experiment. You're watching experiments. You learn the ropes. This was all around mesenchymal stem cells. So I got really quickly started getting into just prototyping, right? Developing different hydrogel prototypes, different scaffold prototypes back in the day, and just alternating the chemistry behind biomaterials in a way that I thought was novel. And so fast forward, I got, I grew up a little, this took me to science fairs and all this jazz. And eventually I ended up going to work for the lab of the guy who named and discovered ultimately the mesenchymal stem cell. His name's Arnold Kaplan. I was the youngest employee to ever work in his lab. And one of the last employees that worked in his lab before he passed away in January 2024. May he rest in peace. Now we live his legacy on. So we started Asclepii out of the premise that we learned at that lab. So it was me and a coworker. He was our chief scientific officer now. He's a PhD, was working there. I was just a young kid. And the thing that most people don't know about Arnold Kaplan or Arnie is that he had invented the first FDA-approved cell therapy in the world. And if you could ask the man who invented the first FDA-approved cell therapy in the world anything, what would you ask, right? And my question to him was, he sold it in 2019 for $660 million. He didn't make much money of it at all, actually. But, he still carried all the lessons with him. And so the question I asked him was, if you had a magic wand, what would you do next, right? And what would you learn using everything that you've learned? If you had a magic wand that you could just pop out a new solution, what would it be? And he said that he would focus on manufacturability and on scalability, because his solution was fantastic. It was life-saving. It was analogous to that of a superpower, right? I mean, it was the first technology ever from a regulatory reimbursement. I mean, from several land perspectives, it was one of the first technologies that could ever heal chronic complex wounds, right? But the problem is it was too expensive. So it created a $10 billion market segment focused around cellular and acellular matrix products, CAMPs, right? They're previously formerly known as skin substitutes, amniotic like matrices. And they were very powerful, but they cost, anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000 a square centimeter, which is very small. So anyway, long story short, we started Asclepii with the simple goal of getting to wounds earlier and better with a technology that could be, let's say, comparable in efficacy to that of an amniotic or a CAMP, right? Like these matrix products, but with the accessibility and simplicity of a Band-Aid. So jokingly, we called it the next Band-Aid, right? Which now is materialized into that we really are making the next Band-Aid. So we raised, I was in sophomore year of college when I started it. We raised about $1 million in non-dilutive funding before I graduated, which was insane. And then within 6 months after graduating, we raised a $2 million venture-backed round, backed by the inventors of the first recombinant vaccine of the world, which is, it was an $8.9 billion exit to Novartis in 2001. So they were the, underlying creators of what eventually became the COVID vaccine. In this case, it was the hepatitis B vaccine. It's called Chiron Corporation. It's a legendary corporation. So those guys then started a venture fund, which is the one that backed Asclepii. So now we are kind of, we've launched our first product. It's called Poseidon. It's a nanogel, a silver nanoparticle hydrogel. And, we're generating revenue, and we'll stop there not to keep it too long.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is super helpful. Okay. First of all, I'm not listing these questions in terms of importance, but how I wrote them down. Being your diverse background, so are you pulling for Argentina?
Yeah.
In the World Cup? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And the other thing
we won last night, by the way. A hat trick by Messi.
A hat trick by Messi. I mean, it's we watched, my wife and I are huge soccer fans, so we watched the whole game, and it's just like, it's not surprising, but then it is. Like, you're not surprising that Messi does something like that, but it's crazy. So anyways, okay, so you're pulling for Argentina. Let me ask you this. In terms of business, obviously you've been in business. I know you're young, but actually kind of a while, right? Like you kind of got thrown right into it. It seems like you've always had that itch. How much has the diversity in languages you speak help with forming relationships? I think about, you clearly speak Spanish. I assume you speak Portuguese. You obviously speak English. You used a little bit of Italian before we got on the phone. How much of that has helped?
So I speak 4 languages. You actually accurately guessed all of them.
Okay.
And which is impressive, but congratulations for that. But I would say 100%, right? Like, look, I mean, And to me, the messy thing, by the way, which is very similar to, it's not surprising, right? Legendary people
Yeah.
have a commitment to excellence, right? And that's what
Yeah.
I do. And so like the difference is that, you know, I might be based in Cleveland, but I am playing globally, and I'm playing like rent is due, and I'm meeting people. I mean, I've grown up in, growing up in 5 countries. I mean, yeah, it really gives you the ability to get people in your corner in several countries, right? And people in your corner, I mean, just people who genuinely want to see you succeed because they know that they're inspired by someone, you know, who they can relate to, right? And I think we early on, especially, I mean, we started with just people in our corner who wanted to help for the most genuine act of wanting to see this go forward because they believed in the mission. Again, people in several different countries. So I think it makes us dangerous on several fronts because we're no longer just a local company, right? We have angles and parallels that compound on each other, right? Like we're always talking to other countries. In fact, our first we only got maybe 200K from the US in our first million of grants. The other 800K came from Mexico, for
No
example.
kidding.
Yeah. And so that's something that, you know, it's just unimaginable for another scenario, right? So it's powerful. It's very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about, you spoke a lot about, the first lab job, working in the stem cell space, talking to this great mentor of yours. And then you go to school at, is it Case Western? That's where
Western.
you went to college.
Yep.
Yeah. Talk to me about where this entrepreneurial bug came from. Is this pre getting the lab job? Is it while you're there? What made you go? Because it's like anytime someone's decides they're going to go do something entrepreneurial, it takes a big leap. It doesn't matter when you do it. At some point you're sacrificing something, right? And so for you to know that so early on, I'm just curious if that was like something that you got the itch early and then it just compounded throughout college, or how'd that work?
Yeah, I mean, I worked for someone who's legendary, right? And Arnie did what he wanted to do, and in every level, like he imagined things and brought them to fruition. He was a magician in that regard, right? And I guess for me, I never really thought about being an entrepreneur. It's not like I was born with this thought of, oh my God, I'm going to start a company and all this. I mean, I wanted to live a good life, right? Like anyone would. But when I was at the lab, I kind of realized quickly that I wanted to be doing more of what Arnie was doing. I wanted to be the decision maker. I wanted to be a visionary. I wanted to be like him. I mean, he was the man I had in front of me, right? And I think directionally, I thought, the more time I spend doing things, kind of learning the skills he's learned and trying to do things at that level, the better I'll become. So by the time that compounds, or that by the time I became like older, I could be more like him, right? I think that was the idea when I started, and also it came from, I mean, I never fit into a traditional system. Like I never got good grades, or right. So like, I wasn't exactly hireable. And that's fine. I was comfortable with that fact, right? But like, anyway, hireable for a traditional role. And so I think for me, like I just realized that, everything you see around you was someone's idea at some point. And it doesn't matter their age. They could have been 14 or 64. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? And it actually reminds me of that Steve Jobs quote, right? But like everything in that, every system that we have in place was someone's craft. I mean, someone built that, right? And it could be a good idea, it could be a bad idea. So I realized that at that rate, as long as you are at that level of commitment to knowledge and commitment to improvement and learning, and not being, stubborn or arrogant about it, I mean, people would be fine with argumenting, like with thinking, with, so I like that. I liked being able to kind of eventually get to the point where I could go one-to-one with my peers, with my scientific coworkers, with Arnold, and disagree, right? Say, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. Or And so that's how Asclepii was kind of born. It was out of the disagreement that the dogma of regenerative medicine should continue to be focused on premiums, and most should be more about scale, right? The science is there. We just need to make it more available. That's genuinely how I see it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Franco, I want to hit on that a little bit more. And then I want to talk about some like your learning experiences and in different stages of this. But when it comes to when you've been talking to investors, obviously you're selling a big vision, right? And you're selling yourself and your team and what you're doing. How much of this though is, to your point, the science is already there. The market is already created. I'm trying to make this more accessible, right? It kind of feels to me, I know for me, those are the kind of projects that I love. I think it's very difficult to change people's behaviors, but if someone's already done that for you, it certainly makes that path to commercialization a little bit easier. How much of that has been in your your pitches to investors, but also to team members, your sales process, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, you have to think about, right? You're on one hand, you're right. Like there is an established market. It's pretty crowded, in fact, right? There's a ton of people have tried and failed. I think there's fantastic lessons to be learned from other people's failures, and there's been millions of dollars in capital deployed into wound care, med devices, the time, but at the same time, there is just a fundamental cultural issue of medical technology, and now and today, and it has nothing to do with the technology, and it almost also doesn't have to do with the providers. It has to do with leadership. We have a terrible leadership in medtech today. It is, and what I mean by that is that the leaders in medtech generally, and I mean this lovingly, I mean as part of the problem and trying to be more of the solution, but like, we think incrementally, we're playing it safe, right? And so we're acting like an oil company, right? When really, and what I mean by oil is, we have this thing and we just hopefully we linearly increase every year and just do a little better and a little better. And for like markets like orthopedics, where they're generally pretty efficient, that's fine. But when you're talking about chronic disease, we can't afford another incremental improvement. We need to think generationally. And when you start thinking about how do you create a new complete train of thought and behavior within, providers, I mean, that is a level of value that is immeasurable, right? And analogous to that of like the iPod back when we were using video cassettes, right? Like DVDs. And I mean, like the iPod was a very significant shift, right? So I think, but those are the most unpredictable. So the sales pitch, that I do to investors is pretty simple, right? It's, look, you're funding a revolution, you're supporting and you're helping shape a revolution. Like this isn't by any means a set plan. It's not like I have this plan and we're going to do it, and no matter what, we're not going to change our mind. But we want to fundamentally change how medical technology is viewed as a whole, and how it's approached, and how value is generated, how profitable it can be. I mean, and all through the idea that simpler is better and earlier is better, right? And so giving tools that are notionally simple for a doctor and that work better than anything they've seen before, or that usually, or that work even to the level that more advanced things work later down the line, that has value to them, right? And if that works, I mean, and the other side is we're not a small company by any means by trying to go the accessible route. I think there's a phenomenal upside to going for accessibility and scale, right? I mean, it's nowadays you're talking about 2026, and it's funny. Tim Draper, we were talking about this. Like Tim Draper believes that humans want to take more agency in their health. They want to have the ability to do so, right? Like, and of course we still want to go to the doctor. That's not right, but we want to be able to do that ourselves as well, right? And so I think there's a lot of different movements happening here, but just to converge into one answer, in short, I think that there is a very big upside in going for everyone as opposed to a specific subset of the population, trying to build for a product that eventually could get everywhere and eat several verticals. And we are very honest about it, right? Like, we don't have it all figured out, but we're essentially building a revolution, and we just want people who believe in that revolution to join us. And if they don't
Yeah.
agree with it, they don't like the market, like, it's fine. You know, we don't need to invest. There's plenty of capital in the world, right? And that's okay too, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about Poseidon. It's your first commercial product. Obviously, I'm sure you have other things in the hopper as well. But talk to me about the first product you've commercialized at Asclepii.
So Poseidon is a absolute smash hit. It is a incredible product. And I gotta tell you, like, this is where luck. I gotta tell you, like, I feel so fortunate because the fact that the product works to the level that it works is something that, you can try from an R&D perspective to design it all your life, but there's always that leap of faith, from when you launch it to the time you put on the first the doctors and patients, and of course you can do clinical studies, but to see the level of patient outcomes that we are generating at the scale that we are generating them, and the level of adoption growth that we're seeing, I think is second to none, genuinely, right? And honestly, I think, again, like, we are witnessing a shift in customer behavior that we didn't necessarily intend to create, but it's happening, right? We just thought, let's just make the best hydrogel, right? Like, let's just launch the best hydrogel product in the world. But now what's happening is it's genuinely becoming a new standard of care. Like where they're, doctors are using it even beyond reimbursement, right? Beyond reimbursement, they're still using it, right? In areas that one might have not necessarily intended to. We're working with the Cleveland Clinic with it. We're working with university hospitals in it. They're both, and it's amazing to see both institutions pushing it internally, right? Sorry, and not even pushing, pulling it internally. I mean, we're seeing a lot more pull with Poseidon than we were ever able to push, right? I mean, we're a small team. So Poseidon is it's a simple gel. It's got 4 ingredients, Dwayne. And one of those ingredients is water. You have more ingredients in a supermarket cookie than you do in Poseidon. But it's true. And the fundamental premise is, we believe in the power of silver as an antimicrobial and a potential, silver's known as an antimicrobial, and it's known as, ephemerally, like, since the Egyptians, it's been used, but it can be very, very toxic, right? So we're the first to introduce into the market the notion that less is more, right? So it's really a silver renaissance is what we call it, but it's not, we didn't choose silver because it's 80% of the market, or because it's still the most commonly used, product, active or like compound in the market. We chose it because we did an analysis of all of the compounds available, antimicrobial and non-antimicrobial. And even we thought about, we've even had ideas of creating new peptides for that purpose. And we just realized that there is nothing like silver in the world. It is powerful, but it can also be toxic at higher concentrations. So just like notionally, 1 part per million of silver does wonders for you with none of the side effects, right? And it's super simple. I mean, but that's the idea, is beauty. There's beauty in simplicity, and that's what we crave. And so, it's not a $1,300 product, right? We come in there and it's just a go-to tool. The doctor is the first thing they use. They see a wound, they're like, yeah, put some Poseidon on it. Let's see how it does after a week. A week's the golden period. I mean, after a week, you can really tell like how that wound's going to progress, how it responds to silver. It generally responds incredibly well. We have a 100% reorder rate right now. And on average, every order we have doubles within 2 months, which is absurd. It is absurd. No one can expect that, right?
Right.
So yeah, anyway, that's what Poseidon is. It's just a go-to tool. Cool. For the better management of chronic ulcers and acute.
Yeah, I want to dive into your learning experience as an entrepreneur, but first, while we're on this topic here, because that is incredible, and clinical validation, early partners, like this is what you want to see, right? It's the kind of data you want to be able to pull in so you can provide it to your next customer and so on. If someone's listening in right now and saying, hey, this is super cool, awesome about Poseidon. I want to know what the next year to two looks like from Franco and his team. What is that? Are you continuing to grow within the wound care space from a continuum standpoint? Are you taking Poseidon to the next level? Like where can we expect growth from you and your
All of the
team?
above. All of the above. But the biggest, yeah. But the
I love
biggest
it.
earthquake, we have an earthquake coming this year, Dwayne. And it's
Okay.
not, I'm not telling you this because I'm in Italy, but there's an earthquake happening, and it's called Artemis. It's called
Okay.
Artemis, like the Greek goddess, the
Great
spearhead.
name. Yeah.
Trademarked. It's a registered trademark for us, which I love. Artemis for us.
You should talk to NASA about this. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, if they want to build rockets called Artemis, that's fantastic. They can't build wound care products called Artemis, or orthopedic or anything related to tissue engineering for that matter. Love you, NASA. Come talk to me. We're actually talking to NASA. We have a great relationship. One of our advisors is the former chief innovation officer of NASA, Glenn. So
That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Artemis is a next step in our care. It's a next step in the continuum of care. We still focus on early wound care, meaning like the first 30 days of a wound. Like what can you do when a wound just happened? And it's a collagen dressing, basically, right? So we have completely reimagined the same way that, and here's where I love that I can say, because I can say this, and I never planned to be able to say this, but I love that I can. We reimagined the collagen dressing the same way we reimagined the silver hydrogel. And what you can expect from Artemis is similar, if not even better results, because again, this is a fundamental generational shift in an entire product category that no one's ever seen coming or innovated in. That category hasn't had innovation in the last 2 decades, almost 3 in the time I've been alive. So we have heard you as a caregiver, as a provider. We care. I am there every single day interacting with doctors, with nurse practitioners, with registered nurses, with WOCNs. It doesn't matter what it is. I have been talking to this industry, interacting with this industry, at its most raw and fundamental form for the last 4 years, because I love it, because I want to make it better, and I think that one of the most under innovated and just under focused areas is the collagen dressing. It just is. So we're launching that in November. It's gonna be a fantastic, maybe December. It depends on how long the FDA process takes, but we're already in the process. I mean, so we're about to submit it. And I mean, it's a similar thing, right? We're launching a whole new other product. It allows us to give our customers more tools to treat wounds better beyond just a gel. This is, actually brings some scaffolding to the mix and some actual physical matrix components to the mix. And those are, by the way, I mean, like Artemis and Poseidon, the gel and the matrix, I mean, they're both manufacturing platforms, right? So for us, that's just the beginning. So for the earthquake we're going to introduce just a new baseline, a genuine new standard of care. And then we're going to take that baseline and we're going to go even further and say, how can we be 2 times better than ourselves? How can we beat ourselves? I think, Dwayne, our biggest challenge is how can we beat the greatness and the excellence, the clinical excellence that we're going to be generating in the next 1 to 2 years. And
Awesome.
The answer is challenge us, right? If you're inspired by this, come talk to us and challenge us. Tell us how we can be better. We'll listen.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay. Walk me through learning experiences as a founder, CEO, entrepreneur. And this could be across the process of taking a product to market, commercialization, generating clinical evidence, managing a team, raising capital. I mean, I'm sure you have learning experiences across all of these things, but if you could pick a few that, hey, there's a young entrepreneur listening right now that says, hey, I'm a sophomore in college. I have an idea for something. I think there's some real traction here. But, what are they getting in for? What are some of these learning experiences?
I always say that the worst idea is to start a company. right? Like it should be the last thought on your mind, and it should be genuinely because nothing else works, right? But having said that, because you should never try to start a company in order to make money. There are really great other ways to make money and to have a stable life and have kids, and like you can live a nice life in so many different. There's 900,000 ways to skin a cat, as they say. Maybe they just said 9, but I think there's 900,000. But I would say that you got to think big. You got to think fast. You got to be pragmatic, and you got to join yourself with people that are willing to bet on you and a nobody, right? Like, and that's okay. So, I mean, and arguably the most important thing. Oh my God, this is probably the best lesson I have learned, is that there is such a powerful thing to be able to recognize and say no, and recognize, you know what, this isn't going to work. Like this market's not going to work. This product's not going to work. This idea is not going to work. That is, if you can recognize that while still doing and trying and doing and trying and iterating and improving and not taking it personally, but recognize when it's time to stop something. Because at the end of the day, and this is what I'm seeing really frequently across some of my peers, my friends, and we're having a lot of conversations about this, right? But the most important thing that one can realize is that every day you spend on something that's not worth doing, you're losing a day that you can spend on something that is, right? So, and it's okay to do something that isn't worth doing. I mean, to learn, right? So I think like when I started Asclepii, like the idea was really abstract. It was simple. It was abstract. We had people who had a lot of experience in wound care, in clinical trials, in product development design, in regulatory. Like I built a team of literally world experts who had done it maybe 15 times before and had 25 years on me, right? And I mean, at moments, like I had doubts. I was like, guys, I don't know. I keep on hearing from investors this is a crowded market. They're like, yeah, but listen, whatever, right? That just means that the problem really hasn't been solved yet. And here's why we think that we should keep going. And so at first, like I was a skeptic of my own work. But I had a team of people who understood it to a level of depth and experience that I didn't. And that helped us get to the point where, I mean, we're raising $12 million right now for our Series A. And it's because we see the path more clearly than ever before. And it makes sense, and at some point it clicks, right? Like we're really quickly transitioning from startup into scale up. We're no longer proving that this is a viable company. We're proving that this is a giga company, right? Like how can we make this huge? I don't want to be big. I don't want to end in Cleveland at a mid-cap level. I want to take this to the world. And so that's what our investors are focusing on, right? And are worried about and are trying to support us. And then the last thing is just, again, in this, just know when to say no. Like know when to say no to an investor. Like we had so many deals that would have worked in the timing that I selfishly wanted them to work at, but just were not good deals. And I'm so fortunate to have said that I held out earning nothing for months, years. I mean, it was tough, man. It was really tough. Grants don't pay you a salary, especially, I mean, at least not the ones we were doing. And so, anyway, find yourself good people behind your corner. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm. I love it. All right. Give me one or two books for our listeners that you might recommend. And it can be fiction, nonfiction. It can be related to medtech. It can be, right, hunt, dude. Give me them.
Innovator's Dilemma by Clay Christensen is a fantastic book. I'm actually rereading it. I love Clay Christensen. I'm inspired. He is arguably one of the most influential thinkers of our time. And The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz. Fantastic books.
Hard Things About Hard Things. Okay.
The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Yeah.
Honestly, Dwayne, they are the kind of book that you genuinely read and you're a different person after reading them, and you think differently.
Awesome.
And you look at things differently. I mean, Ben Horowitz, by the way, who wrote that book, he hadn't even gotten to this point yet, but when he wrote it, he wrote this book in like within a few years. Now he is responsible for 1 in every 4 venture capital dollar in the world.
Wow.
Right. Talk about power, right? Like the power of belief in this history, this rich story. Amazing.
Yeah. Impact.
Impact.
Awesome. Yeah. Franco, I really appreciate you coming on. Hang on for 1 minute. We'll chat offline. We'll include a link to the website here, your LinkedIn as well. So for anyone listening who wants to get a hold of you, they can reach out directly to you. But really appreciate you taking time from a enjoyable scene behind you to do the podcast.
I'm going to
with me
jump
today.
from right here, right after.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. All right. Hang on 1 minute. We'll chat offline.
Hi, I'm Freddie Coffey, Director of Marketing at Jumpstart. The Project Medtech podcast is proudly sponsored by Jumpstart Inc. Jumpstart's Trailblazer Accelerator helps Ohio's most innovative early-stage health tech startups fast-track their growth with tailored advising from serial entrepreneurs, non-dilutive funding to fuel their journey, and unrivaled access to a network of experts, resources, and investment opportunities. Whether it's improving patient outcomes, advancing digital health, or reimagining care delivery, Jumpstart provides the high-impact services and critical resources to bring big ideas to life. Learn more at jumpstartinc.org/startups.
Thank you for listening. At our core, we at Project Medtech are networkers, educators, and consultants. We meet you where you are to bring value and to create impact. We care deeply about helping medtech companies succeed right from the start, through to exit, by providing consulting and fractional services, hosting impactful industry events, and of course, sharing incredible guest insights like the ones you heard today through our podcast. Please reach out at any time if we can be of assistance. Check out our website at www.projectmedtech.com or email us at info@projectmedtech.com.